Lord forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack making backflip. Telly Hank did with the action. With the vital speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews, how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby May. Just caught a touchdown from the bay.
Sunday morning. I used to be a stick-up kid, so I think of all the devious things I
did. Were they looking for you?
Well, if they was looking for me, I was on 125th Street.
Are we able to say their names, or you can keep it?
Yeah, Tom Cross, Felipe Concepcion, and there's a kid named Keith who's no longer on the planet.
Yeah. So Tom Cross, dude, did you know him in passing? What was your report?
I've never seen a dude a day in my life.
You never seen Tom Cross a day in your life?
Never seen him a day in my life.
So I'm confused. So you don't think that they were after you? Think it was random acts of violence?
Again, we talking about, you know, she just happened. From what I understand, she just happened to be in the neighborhood they lived in. So it might have been, you know, they just been opportunities. You know what I mean? Like, I never heard of them dudes. There's dudes I knew who ran around the streets who was on that kind of shit. Mm-hmm. He wasn't one of them. I never heard of the dude.
Do you think that when he found out after what he did and who, because he didn't know when he went there it was anything else. You don't think that he knew you or anything that?
Who? The dude?
Yeah, Tom Cross dude. You don't
well,
think he knew?
let me ask you another question, because we're talking about this is really silly.
Okay.
People have made this dude out to be a gangster, right?
Yes, they did.
Right. So if you're a gangster, why do you turn a home invasion into 3 homicides? Because if you're not worried about me, you go there, rob him, say, yo, fuck him. Tell Kev when I see him, you know, he know what, here's my calling card. I see him when I see him. You did what you did because you was worried about what the repercussions was going to be for violating. Because there's no other reason. Why turn a home invasion, something that is of a drug dealer, which is going to amount to, what, a few years? If in fact you even got prosecuted? So you go from that to a triple homicide because you're a tough guy? I don't know, that don't make sense to me, but I hear these narratives and I'm like, that don't make sense to me. If I'm a tough guy, I'm gonna be like, yo, fuck Flip. Tell Flip I said this, that, and the third. See me when he see me.
And Tom Cross' name was ringing bells in the jail because not only was he a Bronx legend and a stepper, but he had a mad beef at the time with the Bloods.
Nowhere in the world for $1. Nowhere in the world for $1. $1. Nowhere you can find us for $1. Nowhere. Change, quarters. I'll take change, credit cards, phone numbers. Check it out. Check it out. Don't waste my time and your time, dude. $1, you make one more. My boys out here.
During the 1980s and early 1990s, New York City, already grappling with high levels of crime and violence and teetering on the edge of anarchy, faced the introduction of a new drug that would plunge the city even further into chaos, making it feel like hell on earth.
Well, do you know it or not? It's touching you somehow. Just look around. Look what's happened. Drug raids are our new westerns. Cops and robbers, good guys and bad guys. But the story of what drugs are doing to our city, the story of a war being fought and lost on a lot of fronts by countless New Yorkers. Crack is changing the face of this city. It's affecting our children, schools, businesses, the quality of our life today and tomorrow, and goodness knows for how much longer. The police and the drug enforcement agents and the judges will all tell you crack is the worst drug they've ever battled, and the toll it's taking on our city is very high.
Bringing unprecedented levels of murder and mayhem, this new wonder drug will go on to make bums rich. And it would be those riches that would make drug dealers prime targets, not only by the police, but also by groups of men walking the streets, seeking them out.
The beast, D, the deadly train. The A train, the zoo train. On any given night, creepers, gangs will be rummaging through these streets, snatching chains, beating up innocent passerby, sometimes throwing emoluments and setting people on fire. It was back in 1979 that 13 young men from this South Bronx community, black, Hispanic, white, had enough. We began began to patrol these very same subway lines in red berets, t-shirts. No weapons, no special powers or privileges. But the police, not understanding who we were and why we were doing this, used to seeing us as gang members, not as peacemakers. So as we walk through the carriages that connect these endless trains, and as we see the litany of crimes take place, know that with the spirit of the guardian angels who tackled an impossible deed, so many other citizens like ourselves have tackled their impossible problem. For them, it's the streets. For us, it was the subway.
Man, these niggas was
Pretty
crazy.
dangerous at times. We raid those crack houses. You got to be on the money. The wrong move, and we're going to somebody's funeral. And when we get inside, you're slamming and jamming, asking no questions. Hands on the head, paraphernalia on the floor. One of you will be scooping it up, drugs, money, paraphernalia. We're right outside. We perform our little act, we destroy it, we alert the public, English and Spanish, and then we're on our way. We don't have time to play. So are we ready? Yeah. Are we bricks? Yeah. All right. Let's do it.
This is bags of dope. That's dope. For the money we made. $2 bottles of crack. This is $2 bottle of crack. As you see, the size, the seal is in a gold cap. The colors of the caps tell the customers, the smokers, the pushers, what product is better. Alright, these are bags of dope. As you see, it's marked GQ. GQ is a stamp, each dealer has different stamps. GQ happens to be a stamp. Alright? As you see, we got a whole pouch. Everybody inside now. A whole pouch, crack, dope. We even got a stamp. And a drug rate. All this product will be destroyed. As you see, we had to hit them fast and hard. Fast and hard. Because when you make a bust like this, no weapons, we cannot stay in that area too fast. So we have to hit them, stick and move, just like in basketball.
How much did you go inside? Oh, you're still in the truck, right? You went inside? How'd it go? Wild. That block we hit, Bryan and Longfellow and Hunts Point, South Bronx, that's the third worst drug dealing block. And we hit the jackpot. We got the 2 prime salesmen. While all that activity was going on in the inside and you were seeing firsthand what was happening to the 2 jackal salesmen, Big Time Charlie was across the street, rolled up in his Eldorado past the 9mm. He wanted his salesman back. It's the only thing that kept us from throwing those 2 rascals in the truck, taking them to the local precinct and having them booked for possession and sale. These are stuff from the South Bronx where we run drug raids, and believe it or not, we were able to convince some high-priced drug dealers to make a contribution to your food program for the homeless. We were able to get a donation sizable, as you can see, of easily about $1,250.
Nah, not them. The niggas that I'm talking about were killers, and they was targeting the big dogs.
89 is the year something happened to your mom. That's a fact. Can you tell me, before we get into that, if you mind, where were you when you got the call? I was in my store. No, I wasn't in my store. I was in the movie theater.
You're in the movie theater?
Yeah, and it's a funny thing, I was in the movie theater. I went with me and 2 of my guys and 2 girls. It was like 5 of us. And the funny thing is, I seen Rich in the movie theater that night too. That's funny. In Secaucus, he lived in Secaucus. He had a condo in Secaucus, and ironically, I seen him in the movie theater that day.
And what was the call you got?
I got a beep, and it was like 911's. Like, you know, people probably may not know what a beeper is, but I'm not gonna assume. No, we talk. I'm not talking to you. We talking to our audience, right? Should I just assume they know what beepers are? I'm assuming that they don't know what beepers are, but it was a device that you would page, and back then we had codes, and you never use 911 unless it was an emergency. You know, like, so if you was from 142nd Street, you would be at it, because again, we had phone booths, so you would put in the number, and then you would put behind it the code, and I would know it's you, if it's 142nd, 127th. So, you know, I gave people codes, you know, so I would know who was the call. All depending on who it was, you know, it would determine how fast I called you back. But anybody called you with 911, it was understood that you don't play with that.
So I got a 911 call, you know, a bunch of 911s behind the number. And when I called the number back, somebody told me something that happened, and that they sort of described it, but they was crying and they sort of described it. But I didn't know if the person, somebody setting me up or whatever, because I didn't know the person who had called me. And I'm not gonna overly go into that so much, that because it's in the book, you know, and I gotta sell a book, you know what I mean? But there are things that we can touch on, but I'm not gonna go into explaining the whole story and this and that, because you get all the details.
You're not gonna go and explain what happened.
Well, a girl was abducted. She was a teenager. She's 19, maybe 20. 3 grown-ass men, tough guys, gangsters, I guess. For me, they derelicts and bums. But 3 grown-ass men abducted a 19-year-old girl. She was riding around in her Mercedes. She's up in the Bronx. You know, she went to visit a friend. They came out the house. They drew down on her. They abducted her. They accosted her. They threatened her. They, telling her they gonna kill her unless, she get them some money. You know, one thing led to another. They end up back at my mother's house. They go in, they search the house, they go through all of that. They don't find nothing because I didn't keep drugs or money at my mother's house. And they end up shooting all 3 of the women. One of the women survives.
Which was the 19-year-old?
Right.
Did you, so it's in the book, so I don't want to, because you got to get the book out. Did she explain why she brought them to your mom's house?
Well, let me, and I'm glad you asked me that question. Let me ask you a question, because I need your opinion.
Sure, you can ask me anything you want.
How many 19-year-old women you know are gonna stand up to 3 men with guns to them, and they ask them to do whatever? How many grown-ass men, how many police officers, how many gangsters you know? I'm visiting one of her friends, and she was abducted by 3 guys with guns, and they took her to the roof, and they threatened to kill her, and those kind of things, and told her that for her to take them somewhere to get some money. They wanted money or whatever. Ultimately, she ends up bringing them to my mother's house.
Barbara Childs and Rita Falk died from their gunshot wounds. Mrs. Childs had absolutely nothing to do with it.
There was a thing that, with all due respect, that Alpo said that he offered to take $10,000 from you to handle that situation. Do you recall that? I heard he said that.
Yeah, of course I heard that. That wasn't true.
So he didn't offer.
We had a conversation, him and I. We had, again, we was friends. Mm-hmm. So my conversation was more about, once I got a line on who the guy was, as to, I knew somebody that ran with the dude that he knew. Mm-hmm. So my conversation with him was like, yo, man, I heard that this dude runs with this character that you know on the east side. Could you tell me something about the dude? This is before the dude got caught. The dude, and these dudes end up in another state, first of all. They wasn't in New York City. So whatever you heard or whatever that misconception is, and again, I just told you what my team was. I didn't need no outside assistance to handle any affairs that I might have had. So our conversation was more because we was cool about tracking the dude down, and that was our conversation. And on top of that, at that particular time when this happened, me and him was doing business, real business. $300,000 or $400,000 we exchanged between one another. And do you think he just wouldn't have said, Kev, I'm gonna handle that? Because I know if the shoe was on the other foot, he wouldn't have had to say, Kev, give me $10,000. I would have took care of him and said, yo, I took care of that. So that was a false narrative.
So you did it, but they done. Okay. And I remember stepping to Kevin, and they said I stayed on Kevin. They said I supposed to testify against Kevin. Kevin was good people, man. We had some business understandings and all that. I always respect Kevin because he wasn't really with the drama and all that. But when I really got a little upset with Kevin was when they did that to his mother, right? And I stepped to him, right? I was like, yo, man, I know somebody that can get to them kids, tossing them up on the island, man. All they want is like $10,000 in their account, right? Now,
in-depth interview after his capture and after an appearance on America's Most Wanted. Thomas Cross, or Tom Cross, would thoroughly explain that his life of crime began as early as 12 years old, saying that he was born in the Valley section of the Bronx, saying he would later move to 183rd and Valentine Avenue. Tom Cross would describe himself as the average student to the publication, saying that he had hopes of becoming a boxer. By age 12, he was merely a lookout, but by 1978, at age 16, his role had escalated, leading to his arrest for shoplifting. And when he was asked if he adjusted well to prison, he would say he did, saying, quote, "The inmates said that he acted like he was from Brooklyn." And if anybody tuned in was in or know about the New York prison systems at that time, the late 1970s and the early 1980s, y'all will understand what that means. He would end up back on the streets by 1980, finding himself probably in the first time in urban history where you could have died for your coat, with sheepskin and leather bomber thefts at an all-time high, and fear of becoming a victim of the same type of person that he would eventually become. He would start carrying a gun. Though he would claim to the magazine that he hadn't started robbing people at that time, saying that that didn't happen until 3 years later in 1983, when some people he had served time with would start to come home when they put action to a plan that they would come up with when they were all behind the wall. He would explain that his first robbery would come in 1983, and it was a big one, saying that him and his crew robbed somebody for $40,000 in cash and $100,000 in jewelry. He would say how he dabbled in drugs, but he would distinctively speak on this robbery as the one that would turn him to a robber, saying that the people that he did the robbery with didn't want nothing to do with the jewelry. That being his part of the heist, he would talk about how he took the jewelry back to his block, and he would start to think that this, being the robberies, was even easier than selling drugs, and he would go on to make a career of it. He seemed to target the hustlers and the money getters from Harlem, as feds would ask him specifically. First, they would ask him about robbing people from other boroughs, specifically from Brooklyn and from Queens. And he would reply to them that at one time he attempted to rob Pappy Mason, but saying that he ended up running up on the wrong car. His biggest robbery that he would talk about would be the robbery of the owner of the legendary rooftop skating rink, saying that he would actually catch him 2 times, and he would end up getting him for over $250,000 in cash and jewelry. It's also rumored online that platinum producer Teddy Riley was also a part of one of those 2 robberies. But that robbery, like another one he would later go on to commit, would have serious ramifications, and it would lead to him talking about the murder of a guy by the name of Crusher and his girlfriend, and another person by the name of Ty, who just happened to be the brother of UBN founder OG Mac Stone. Now, in less words than more, he would explain that Ty, OG Mac Stone's brother, Crusher, and his girlfriend were all killed because they were close friends with Gusto, and he believed that they had given up his location. Though he wouldn't admit to the murders himself, he would only admit to being there. And the other robbery that would have serious ramifications and even lead to him being on America's Most Wanted with his co-defendant and led to him serving a 56 years to life sentence would be the murder of Kevin Child's mother, Barbara Childs, and Rita Falk, and the shooting of Sheree Watson. But he would speak on going on the run for that crime, saying that he ended up in places like Atlanta, California, Arizona, Austin, Texas, and eventually the place that he would end up being caught at, Toledo, Ohio. He would speak on immediately getting to prison and being labeled public enemy #1 by the entire UBN Blood Nation. Now, for those of you that never been or are not familiar with New York prisons, but the only thing I can liken that to is being enemy of the state, like Will Smith was in that movie. But even worse, if I had a choice, I would probably rather have beef with all the Bloods in Los Angeles, because in that case, at least you could probably still move to Long Beach or just move, period. But in the New York jail system, there's not a penitentiary that you're going to go to where you're not going to run into Bloods that are under the UBN Nation. And he would explain how that target would be put on his head because OG Mac was aware that police suspected him of the murder of his brother Ty, and he was seeking revenge for that. And just doing my research, this interview was only brought to us as part of a bigger beef by possibly two of our favorite street publications ever, Feds and Don Diva magazine. In the interview, Kevin Childs would explain how he was once a friend of the owner of Feds magazine. But with Don Diva coming out after Feds magazine, it might have triggered some kind of beef, causing his one-time friend to interview the killer of his mother. Y'all make sure y'all hit the red bell and subscribe button right under this video so y'all know when this real trill spill shit is dropping. Y'all get in the comment box below. Y'all let me know what cities we need to go to, what stories we need to tell, what we missed, what we got wrong, all of that. Y'all tapping with me directly on Instagram, Twitter, POP_A_LOT. And until the next play, y'all know how we rocking. Shades Popalot. Salute the almighty mob.